Hello, I am Jenny, a trainer from DTP. As a trainer for many years, I have helped teachers improve their teaching practices. And in this video, I will assist you deliver this culture or CLIL lesson in a meaningful context. We know that a teacher's goal is to get their students learn and use English, right? But why include culture topics in learning English? You see, any language development is affected and shaped by culture. And that's why the I Learn Smart Start book includes culture lessons to connect your students to their home culture in your English language classroom. And also CLIL, or Content and Language Integrated Learning, is applied in the cultural lesson too, as this is a great way to connect the topics to your students' lives while improving their communication skills. So in short, it's a perfect way to promote the students' values and beliefs, as well as motivating them to learn and talk about themselves while practicing the use of English language. As I go through this teacher training video, I will explain why culture is important for English learning. Next, I will show you the I Learn Smart Start book for cultural lesson. Then, I will share with you some engaging activities that I know, and of course, apart from the book's activities that you can use in delivering the lesson. And finally, I will share the values your students will learn from these cultural lessons. I Learn Smart Start values culture, and this book wants to make sure that it is natural for your students to feel the connection of the cultural contents or topics with their lives. The home culture connection is a great help to see the importance of the topics in the book, which can easily motivate them to learn and use English. And since the topics have an impact with your students' lives, they are exposed to their cultural values as well. You know, their traditions, beliefs, and values are part of the cultural lessons that I Learn Smart Start book included, which is an exceptional thing to learn in a class as early as grade 1. And therefore, students build a strong understanding of themselves and their place in the world. Students are encouraged to examine their own culture and learn more about their own cultural traditions, beliefs, and values. Here, take a look at the lesson structure. You can see the topics, and each lesson has 5 parts: A, B, C, D, E. Why don't we take a closer look at the cultural topics? CLIL is applied in these cultural topics because students learn culture through English language. With these interesting real-life topics, which are suitable for their young age, such as family, colors, animals, numbers, and toys, it will be easy for your students to develop their English language skills, and they will be motivated to participate more because your students can relate and connect with the topics. Teaching culture topics is sometimes hard, especially if you don't know how to teach it, but it doesn't have to be, because this book includes the lesson objectives. Actually, every lesson in the I Learn Smart Start book has the lesson objectives, and you can see them at the top page to guide the readers, either teachers, students, or parents, so that they can track the vocabulary words and sentence structures that the students learn in that given unit. As you start teaching the culture lesson, you will always start with the vocabulary words. Here, in this first part of the lesson, you introduce the words that are basic, but very useful and appropriate for your students' age. And what I like best about this book are the usage of real pictures and colorful photos, because these photos have beneficial learning effects to your students, as these will put striking images to their young minds, which I believe will make them remember the vocabulary words longer. Moving on to the second part of the culture lesson is teaching sentence structure. These short and simple sentence structures will help your students build a good foundation in making sentences. And this book really aims that your students master creating short and simple sentences first to help them make sense of the big content words in the next units. After teaching your students about the vocabulary words and sentence structure, is a very engaging and motivating review game. Your students apply their knowledge in different exciting games. Actually, your students won't feel the stress of reviewing their knowledge in class when they play these activity games. And that's why they are naturally encouraged to participate in activities while you have a chance to check their understanding as well. After you reviewed your students about the target language they learned from you, you are now ready to give this guided or controlled practice for your students. And this is the fourth part of the lesson. It provides an active learning, particularly strengthens your students' knowledge on vocabulary and structures. The primary purpose of this part of the lesson is to develop your students' imagination that eventually leads to their creativity. And this book finds a perfect opportunity to introduce the cultural values and traditions through cultural stories. After giving your students the controlled practice, it's time for free practice. This is the best part where students put their learning into practice freely through games. This last part of the lesson will surely encourage your students to use the target language however they like because of these fun and engaging games. I am sure your students will participate more naturally in your class as you let them play these exciting games. Why don't I show you the whole cultural lesson? Let me choose lesson 5, which is about animals. Look. This is how a 2-page cultural lesson looks like. And I will share to you some of the fun activities I used in my class before. Before you start your lesson, consider the characteristics of your students. What if they have 0 English language skills? As a suggestion, you might consider talking slowly, but clearly, and use hand gestures when talking, so that your students will associate with your word to your actions. And the next time they hear the same words, they will know already what you mean. All right, so it's time to teach the vocabulary words. Of course, first, let your students listen to the audio, point at the words, and repeat. Then you can apply your own fun activity. Since iLearn Smart Start provides flashcards for the teachers, use the colorful flashcards in your games to help your students practice pronouncing the vocabulary words. And I have 3 suggested games you can use in your class. You can use a reward or point system to get your students excited and do their best. All right, so let's have 1. Show the flashcards to your students and then randomly say a vocabulary word and let that student or let all of your students point at the correct flashcard. Okay? We can also play Stop the Bus. So as you shuffle the cards, let them say stop the bus if they see the picture in front. Okay? And last one is the sumo fighting. This game is a very fun game that is suitable for young kids who are very energetic and love to move around. Because sumo fighting is like this. Okay? So put a vocabulary word or a flashcard at the back. Okay? The goal is to look at somebody's back and read that word correctly. So all you have to do is just hide that word on your back. Okay? So moving forward is constructing sentences. After letting your students listen to the audio, point at the picture and repeat them, it is time to insert your fun activities again for them to practice the target language. Again, use the colorful flashcards, okay? Because using those photos can put vivid images into your students' minds. So, use the colorful flashcards as much as possible because your students can easily remember the picture, which links to the vocabulary words and the structures too. Alright, so with these 3 suggested exciting games in your class, you can use reward or point system again, okay? Let's have jumbled cards. As you jumble one flashcard at a time, okay, student must say the correct sentence structure, but practice first. So for example, this one, okay, let your students say the structure correctly, and then give a point. Now, second is chain game. Okay, this is a cooperative learning, but for you teachers, you can make your own rules. Okay, so, well, for me, maybe I will just put the flashcards here and then let them choose one flashcard. If they choose a flashcard, they have to say the structure. Okay, and to give more challenge to your students, just put the flashcards facing down, and then whatever flashcard they choose, they have to say the structure. And last one is pass the message. This is very easy. Let them form one line, say a message to the first player, and that first player must pass the message to the next one, and so on. Okay, so the correct message, that team will get a point. Now it's time to review both vocabulary and structure. I Learn Smart Start book makes sure there are different engaging ways to review your students. Teaching Lesson 5 about animals has a stepping stone game. But don't worry, you can always make your own rules playing this game. But I can suggest that you lay your flashcards facing downwards on the floor and then let 2 teams form a line from both ends, okay? And then you will turn one flashcard up and let your student see the picture. That student must make a sentence structure using the vocabulary word, okay? And if the student is successful, she or he makes 1 step forward. And if that team reaches the end first, they will win the game. Okay? All right, now I'm going to give you and I'm going to share you 3 more suggested activities. We have the board game. Okay? Just let them play the race by putting the flashcards on the board. Say a word. Let them touch it first. If they do that properly, give them a point. Guessing game. All right, now with this one, just place the flashcards behind of a student, let's say here, okay? And then the other team members must only say yes or no. So let's say the flashcard here, so I don't know the word, right? So I have to keep guessing. And then my teammates will just say yes, and then no, okay? Only yes or no, all right? And last one is pretend or charade game. Actually, it's really charade, okay? But it's just pretend game for the kids. And this is a fun game to play. You can start acting out a word. Let's say monkey, right? Okay, so if the students get it properly or guess the word properly, use it in a sentence, okay? And then the fun is that your student comes in front, let them act the word, and then in front of everybody, they will look at that student doing the action. Sometimes a student can make silly movements, and that's really fun to watch, right? So if the team guesses the word correctly, give that team a point too, Okay? So as long as you hear the vocabulary words correctly and heard them made constructed structures properly, just give them a point. They like it so much. So, let's have the controlled practice. As we move on to this fourth part of the lesson, let your students listen to a story because they will learn good values, especially the appropriate sentence structures for a certain situation. Then, you can apply your activities again to boost your students' connection to the Vietnamese values and culture. So, after playing, you can play with the information and recall the story to your students in wrong order. So, you intentionally say the information in wrong order because this allows students to reorder the story for you. And at the same time, you are helping your students to retell the story too. And after that, you can have your students do the role play activity as they become confident in saying the structures in the class. The fifth and last part of the lesson is free practice. Just let your students do the 3 role play activities first. I am sure your students will be more confident about their communication skills. Then, it's time to get creative in telling the story. You can encourage your students to practice saying the structures as freely as they can. So, give different scenarios when to say sorry and say it's okay. Maybe start stepping on someone's foot or dropping someone's things, or let's say taking someone's things, all right? So just let them practice how to say sorry, when to say sorry, and it's okay. And then tell your students they can add some facial expressions or do the actions for the camera action activity. Okay, let them think they are going to be filmed. Perhaps some of your students have an interest being in front of TV and become famous someday. So after teaching the whole culture lesson of I Learn Smart Start book, you should be proud of yourself because you are able to help your students reinforce the target language and strengthen their Vietnamese cultural values. And because this book uses CLIL, your students learn cultural topics and develop their English skills. And thanks to you teachers, your students can learn the value of respect towards people, especially the elderly, okay? And if you check the book, a concept of family is always introduced in every culture topic. And this strengthens the idea of family unity. So respect family unity for your students. And in result, your students have now a strong relationship to their home culture. And of course, let's say thank you to I Learn Smart Start book because this book integrates the value of keeping the Vietnamese culture traditions alive. Thank you for listening and goodbye.